Okay, another interesting thing in a medrash called Medrash Seichel Tev, it says, Rab Menachem says, many people love the day in which they were born and rejoice with a festive meal. The Medrash says it in Medrash Seichel Tev Anthology, chapter 40, paragraph 20. So the question is, what does it mean when people shrug with their shoulder and say, Yemeledes, it is, we find only about Parei. So there's an interesting explanation that is given by one of the great Torah leaders, and he says as follows, that when we say Yemeledes as Parei, it says, let's examine the background over here. The tractate, the Talmud in Shabbos, and the tractate of Shabbos says that originally Yankiv was worthy to go down with chains to Egypt, chained up. But later, his merit worked for him, and this was avoided through his son Yosef, who sent wagons and in a very dignified way brought his father and the siblings, everybody to Egypt. It says, where did it all start from? You know where it started from? From the Yom Haledes of Parei. Because when it was the birthday of Parei, and then later they called him in to explain the dreams. As a result of that, Yosef was put into the position. So the Yom Haledes of Parei actually elevated Yosef. So this was an elevation for Yosef. It was an elevation that he actually became the second in command in Egypt. So this is the answer in regard to people that ask Yom Haledes as Parei. This is basically where it comes from. It is Yom Haledes as Parei is very significant because we're the Jewish nation. The Jewish tribes were after the Yom Haledes of Parei, and what the birthday of Parei contributed meant a lot, because that actually changed a whole phase in Jewish history, brought Yankiv and his sons into Egypt in a very dignified way, in a very honorable way, and basically the exile that they went to Egypt was a different thing, had nothing to do with the birthday of Parei. It had to do with the decree that Abraham took upon himself when it came to the furnace, to the Bein Absarim, to the covenant of that he made with, what the Almighty made with him, that he had a choice: either they should go to Gehenna or they should go to Golus, and he chose exile for them. So this is basically the exile. Now the question is, why the rejoicing? What is the significance of rejoicing? There are some that say rejoicing. A person should say, well, woe to me that I was born. Who am I and what am I? As one of the tzaddikim in other Hasidic sects said, he said, a stone should have been born instead of me. In modesty, expressing himself. But when we look at a person, how the person finds themselves as a fetus in the womb of the mother, and later as the child goes out, is delivered, and there's a birth, so we can understand what the rejoicing is about. When the child is in the womb of the mother, it is part of the mother. The Talmud tells us, Uber Yerech Imei. The fetus is basically a part of the mother. It's like the hip of the mother. It's not a separate entity. It's eating what the mother eats. It's drinking what the mother drinks. It's connected with an umbilical cord to the mother. It's not independent at all. When the child is born, the umbilical cord is disconnected, cut off. And the child becomes independent, becomes a separate entity, becomes a creation for itself. And therefore this is the rejoicing. The rejoicing is a whole new independent person is created. Independent, although they need nurturing the first few years in order to grow up, but eventually this is the potential. The child is on its own. It's not connected, not to the apron of the mother, and not to the umbilical cord of the mother. And this is the rejoicing of a birthday. Birthday, basically, when it's as it is reenacted every year, since time is like a spiral, like a spiral, and when a specific day appears, it is as if it is being reenacted from anew. So therefore, when it comes to a birthday, it reminds a person that a person is a separate entity, and a person is a whole world for itself, for oneself, in order to accomplish what they need to accomplish. Kabbalistically speaking, the Chidah, Rab Chaim Yosef David Azuloi, who was a Kabbalist and also wrote responses in Halachat of Torah and Laws of Torah. He wrote Tshuvas, Shilas and Tshuvas, answers to difficult, complicated questions. He wrote many books, and he even had time to explore. He would be climbing the Alps. He had many different interesting svarim that he wrote, and some of them are around. If they're not around the hard copy, they're online. So the Chidah writes like this: the idea that every year something is being reenacted, he says, because every year there's a new revelation. Every year, when that day comes around again, it is basically being reenacted, and there's a new revelation that takes place on that day, which possibly we can say this is an explanation also what Rav Shneur Zalman of Liadi says, that every Rosh Hashanah there's a new revelation that didn't happen before, because it is actually being reenacted again from anew. And with this we also understand and can appreciate the concept of a Yom HaLedes. A Yom HaLedes is basically something that's being reenacted with the revelations, not only from then, but the revelations for the new year. Like a Rosh Hashanah, which there are new revelations that didn't take place earlier. Because a birthday is compared to a Yom HaLedes, to a Rosh Hashanah, to a new year, so therefore also it is considered a day of reflection. A person should isolate themselves, should spend time and reflect on themselves, what their deficiencies are and what they still need to correct. And that is like a Rosh Hashanah, that a person makes a cheshbon, an inventory, a spiritual inventory, where they are in the world, what's happening with them, how the year went. The same way like a businessman makes an inventory, how the year was, what they bought, what they sold, what the profits were. In the same sense, this is also in regards to a person. So when it comes to the Yom HaLedes, a birthday of a person, this is the individual Rosh Hashanah of the person. Now we're going on to the second part of it, the second section, which is basically the section recording in history how Gdei Yisrael, great Jewish leaders over the course of the years, would commemorate their birthday. It is mentioned in the Sefer Ben Ish Chai, who is, I think in the last century, he a Sephardic, one of the great leaders amongst the Sephardic community. He wrote many different books. Svarim writes that there are those that have a custom to commemorate the Yom HaLedes and make a Yom Tov out of it. Celebrate it as a holiday. And it says, V'siman Yofahu, it is a good sign, and this is also customary in our house. The Ginza Yosef writes, I know from many people that every year when the day of their birthday arrives, they make a shechayonu on a fruit, on a new fruit or a new garment. Because on a Yom HaLedes, the day of a birthday, it is appropriate that a person should give thanks to the Almighty. The Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Hasidic movement, would customarily commemorate and make a festive meal every year on Chai Elul, the day that he was born. So he would commemorate it every year. And he would say Torah. He would elaborate on different parts of Torah on the occasion of his birthday. The Heilige Ruzhiner, the Tzemach Tzedek would refer to the Ruzhiner, who is the dynasty Ruzhin today, and Sadigur, they're an offspring from the Ruzhin dynasty. So the Heilige Rabbi Yisrael Ruzhin said that he told someone that he commemorated his birthday, and the same thing also his son, who was his successor, wrote also that likewise that his father commemorated his own birthday. The Charkover Rebbe, he would make a meal, a mishta in the day of his birthday, and it says that this is a inyan of a sgula. It's a sgula, it's a blessing, it's a potential for positive things. The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe writes in regards to a birthday, when he would wish someone a blessing for a birthday, so he wrote, Mazel Tov, the Almighty should give you long days and years, and healthy days and years, physically and spiritually. The fifth Rebbe of Chabad, the Rebbe Rashab of Lubavitch, said that in regards to his birthday, that every rejoicing that has a foundation in Torah and in serving the Almighty, a person could accomplish Yeshuas, could accomplish great things for the benefit of the public. Which means that that day is an auspicious day to accomplish great things for the benefit of the public. This was actually his last birthday in this physical world. And that's when he said it to his son, the previous Rebbe.
The fifth was Rebbe Rashab?
Fifth leader of Chabad, the Rebbe Rashab. His birthday is on the 20th of Cheshvan. By the Lubavitcher Rebbe, when somebody would mention to him that he has a birthday, that they have a birthday, the Rebbe would wish a Shnas Hatzlocha, a year of success. The Chassam Sofer, who is known in the halachic world, his birthday was on the 7th of Tishrei. He would then commemorate it in completing the Chumash with the Talmidim, because this was the day of his birthday. So he marked it, he noted it in a very special way. The Ksav Sofer was already a descendant in a later generation after the Chassam Sofer. The father of the Ksav Sofer was the student of the Chassam Sofer. So he would conclude a Gemara, a tractate, in the day of his birthday. He also wrote to his son, I thank the Almighty in public, Shechayonu v'kimonu v'giyonu lizman hazeh, that He has sustained us and helped us exist in this day, make it to this day. And he says, in that day I made a siyum, a tractate on I concluded the tractate